Think of the people you interact with every day. Would you want to spend a day in a canoe with them? I'm Nathan Mercereau, and as a financial advisor with over 25 years of experience, I've learned that the quality of the people you spend time with is a lot more valuable than what can show up in a set of financial projections. And growing up in Canada, I discovered you can learn a lot about a person when you spend a day in a canoe with them. So I created this show where I interview people I find interesting and inspiring. I invite you to listen in and learn from their stories so you can create the life you want, one filled with wealth, wisdom, meaning, and purpose. I'm delighted today to be joined by Tyson McDowell. Tyson is co-founder and managing partner of Greatscale Ventures and a thought leader on a really important topic of AI, which is artificial intelligence and how that permeates our ecosystem. Tyson has a long tenure in this space and has a well-received and highly viewed TED Talk on YouTube that I'd recommend that you check out. Tyson, welcome to Day in a Canoe. I'll just dive right into this AI question.
Sure.
For listeners, how pervasive is AI? How much of it actually affects us in our world, in our life?
Yeah, I think everyone's life is affected, even if you're not connected. It's that pervasive at this point. The primary information sources for the people that have control or power or influence things, it's manipulating them, it's influencing them. So even really disconnected people are very directly impacted by its ability to cause information or trends to occur in society.
And what would be an example of that? Just, that you've seen.
Yeah.
And I know there are many, but what are some?
This used to be hard in 2012 when there weren't tangible examples. It wasn't so palpable, but, hashtag Me Too and Black Lives Matter, specifically related to how that trended online and what people took to that. The nature of the climate change conversation as an example, the 2016 election, the Capitol riot, all of those. I challenge anybody to, not to a duel, I challenge anyone to actually believe they know anything about what's really going on in any of those topics. And I challenge anybody to have a strident belief and share it with someone without fear. So
those are great principles.
Yeah, there's fear there because of that. We can get into that. But go ahead.
So what is AI doing that would, create a headwind or an obstacle for that kind of more sharing of a clear point of view? What's happening in the ecosystem of AI?
Yeah, it pretty much it's in the ecosystem of information sharing AI, which is kind of what I focus on. It's not self-driving cars. I focus on the stuff that decides what ad you see or what post you see from social media, what shows up on the recommendation engine in YouTube or on your Google News feed. Those are the AI streams or the information impacted by AI that I focus on, and basically it's picking what's going to be popular or what is popular. And the way that it makes that decision is based on how big the spark is. So if you have a trend, let's say it's a hashtag, any hashtag, Twitter's architecture says we pay attention to hashtags. Anyone can commission a new hashtag, but which one becomes one of the big ones? Which one's the viral hashtag? And there has to be a spark. I don't know the exact number. It's somewhere between 70,000 and 150,000 repeats of that hashtag within some compressed period of time, maybe a day or two. Anymore, the only way to really do that is to buy that. So, you can buy those trends. You can use bots and influencers and all kinds of things to literally just acquire not only the word or the hashtag, but also the spark that causes it to aggressively virally share. That's just one example. So it's a combination of what becomes popular ends up becoming the thing that decides whether or not things you say later get seen or heard. It also decides what things you get to see. It basically won't show you stuff that's not on your own trend, and others won't see what's on their own trend. So probably the easiest way to understand the impact of that design is it's easy enough to say something and and it could go viral, and it could be very bad for you. Like you could accidentally take the wrong stance. And then if you were to retrade on that, or retract it, or counterpoint it, or say, I've learned, and now that I've understood, I've learned, it literally just won't get picked up. So your ability to counteract a trend once the train's left the station, boy, it's gone. And so those are the kinds of things that create that environment to where the cost of getting your belief wrong is high enough that I think people are even naturally, especially young people, determining what would be accepted long before they really thoroughly understand what they themselves believe on their own.
Now, you presented a TED Talk in 2018, Preserving Humanity as AI takes us over. Mm-hmm. What was your motivation and core message within that talk?
Yeah. Well, the motivation was really simply that I was concerned that the discussion around artificial intelligence on the internet and how it impacts information, people were talking about it like it was going to happen and it might be bad later. And by 2012 or 2018, when I did the talk, I've been seeing a worsening trend in actual human impact, negative human impact. Everything from people not having basic skills of self-reasoning and having like hate speech online, stuff like that, going back to 2009. So the motivation was how much the discussion was about how the Terminator might show up in 2040. AI might wake up and arm itself and hurt us. It's like, what are you talking about? This thing woke up with Facebook, and it's been pummeling us with the same kind of negative social impacts that Hitler did to his people.
So that's a stark realization when it moves from this theoretical trend to something that becomes very real and pervasive in our lives. Yeah. So what are you working on now that tries to navigate and maybe find the useful purpose of AI instead of the disassociation and misinformation trends?
Yeah, well, one way I work on this specifically, you're helping me with right now, Nathan. I mean, I like just talking about it with people in a real way. I share a lot, like at high schools and kids that are on Instagram and TikTok, and really help them understand how what they think is happening isn't what's really happening, and teach them how to interrogate that, second guess it a little bit. But professionally, we build companies, and I'm the CTO of the companies that we invest in when the companies are young. We build companies that use kind of the most aggressive forms of this sort of AI, but instead point it at ensuring that people get a rapidly increased quality of life according to that person. So everything from automating, not so much automating, but scaling up therapy, mental health, behavior development around eating better or saving money because you want to, or being more social, coming off of addiction, whether that's addiction to the phone or addiction to a substance. All of these things are challenges of the human brain. And interestingly, it's like social media itself is a big challenge of the human brain. Social media is designed just like a casino to antagonize the addiction part of your brain, the reactive part, and kind of cloud your judgment or stop the judgment from the more advanced system 2 thinking. If you follow Daniel Kahneman's fast and slow model, thinking fast and slow model. So we build systems that use that very same thing, but instead of pointing it at what an advertiser says they want you to buy, we point it at that very individual user self-claiming what it is they want to change about their life. That's a hard habit to form. And people go through strategic planning. I mean, I think any business owner or family office or individual, they sit down and they plan. You're using that upper mind. That's when you really figure out what you really want. And then you go out and live your life. And when you're out living your life, 99% of the time, it's very reactive. So software can show up and nudge you towards just, if I'm going to turn left or right, like I can't think about it, just tell me. And today, these AI systems, even like through Google Maps, literally tell you to turn left or right without thinking about it. And we build systems that do that towards these very difficult habits to form.
And I'm looking at a recent purchase, that I just purchased
Nice.
for Upright. It's not AI driven. Well, I guess it is AI driven because it just helps alert you when you're slumped
Oh
over,
crap!
especially when you're.
I gotta unslump then.
Yeah, and you think about all the health benefits that come
Yeah,
just by having a more upright posture, and especially people that are, hovered over a keyboard or kind of huddle over
yeah,
paperwork all day. You can really have a negative effect on your physical body and mental as well.
yeah,
So I think there's so many things in technology that can be used for the good. It's just knowing how to navigate the landscape that we're in,
yeah,
because I'm in agreement that there's so much noise, and we find this in the investment world and the financial planning world, where we try to cut through the noise because the media will amplify whatever the headline is to create more
yeah.
fear and anxiety to try to get people's eyes or ears on whatever the medium they're sharing. And it's a challenge, and it's becoming more pervasive than ever. I want to go back to where you started, because you've
Mm.
had a really interesting journey personally. Take us back to the early days of Tyson and just some of the highlights in your career that in your evolution towards where we are today.
Sure. Well, it's all started in a canoe. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I've always loved aviation. I've been my grandparents were into that. My dad was into that, and we grew up next to an Air Force base in Lompoc, and that always blew my mind. And I was just like 3, 4, 5-year-old kid that was just fantasizing about that and being inspired by that and reading all these books of drawing planes and stuff. And this was in the 80s, and so the computers came out, and my dad brought one home. There's a flight simulator on it, and so I learned how to run computers to play flight simulator, make it run faster and stuff, and gave me like an intro to programming. And during middle school and high school, I was taught to write websites, and then wrote our school websites that then won some awards, the Governor Awards in Washington State and California. So I just kind of, by the time I was a freshman in high school, I had like credibility in the 90s as a web engineer, which I didn't really know what that was, but I did know that people were willing to pay money to build websites. So they did. And I used the money to pay for flying lessons. My parents actually paid for most of my early flying lessons when I was younger. But yeah, I knew that I wanted to earn money to fly. That was it. That was super cool. And it was freedom. And so I didn't mean to do software, but I got to learn it as the internet was really maturing. And at that time, you could hire a 14-year-old kid or a 50-year-old experienced engineer, and we both knew the same things. And in fact, the 50-year-old engineer was usually blocked by some old thinking engineering wise that I just wasn't. They were very much on premise, and I was very much just web based from birth, literally. So as an engineer, I was just born into the new world. And so it was efficient and personable and liked flying, which people think is cool. So just a good mix, a good brand, but super undirected, like really, really badly undirected. I was flying lots of planes for a lot of people that owned companies. Like the guy that owns a plane tends to own an insurance company or an auto dealership or whatever, or a large doctor's practice. And they'd ask me what the internet meant to them, and I said, I don't know. And they'd hire me to figure that out. And I'd write websites that turned into business processing systems, a lot of like supply chain management, inventory management, order ahead, online shopping cart kind of stuff, integration with their old systems, put it online. Yeah. Amazing mentorship, amazing insights into life, and a whole lot of really bad insights, a lot of kind of playboy attitude, a lot of aggressive, just have fun, frivolous spending. So it was this crazy balance of experience for just a kid. And when I graduated high school, I was terrified of going to college, absolutely terrified. I thought I'd be found out as a fake, a phony. I'd missed most of my high school. I don't like taking tests. So ended up just founding a company. And that turned into eventually what's now it's called Meduit, but was called Aberdeen Health, that made hospitals efficient at collecting money with software that drove large numbers of call center agents to say the right things to patients and hospital systems to send the right bills to insurance and so on. That allowed the hospitals to be financially healthy. And ultimately, during the end of that run, we sold the company in 2016. It became more about the patient experience. We did a merger, and that company, the one we merged into, was larger and was really established in this great ethos of it's about empathy. We're a collection agency worried about these patients facing this massive financial turmoil in the middle of just coming out of the hospital. And how do we care for them? And that was their position as a debt collector, and our software was able to embody a lot of that logic and use AI and AI-like techniques to carry that forward into its systems. And it really caused us to collect more gently, and not even collect, but instead facilitate for people that weren't truly in collection. They might be literally in collection, but it was because of a mistake, a misunderstanding, a confusion. And that taught me the power of technology at very high scale to solve pretty emotional problems and a lot of financial impact. But that's pretty darn obscure. So, I was doing that from when I was 18 years old until 33. And during that time, Facebook happened and the iPhone and Zuckerberg and all this stuff. And the cool stuff was happening over there. And I was doing this like healthcare thing. I felt like an outsider and didn't have much to contribute to that until really in 2009, 2010, Facebook started getting really weird. And Mark Zuckerberg was not, when he does his annual writings, like as an engineer and as an ethicist, as a person that understands ethics and the impact of technology and government matters related to that, regulating IT, I was like, this is not matching. This is not, I'm not saying there's any bad heart there. There isn't, but it doesn't like compute. There's not a moral ethos that works at scale for society, and in interlocking with the technology. And there's a lack of transparency and a lot of free wielding. It felt like they knew they had something very powerful, like a nuclear bomb that, it's like, well, this thing could turn into a nuclear power station or a nuclear bomb. And but we'll go the bomb route but not blow it up until we can turn it into a power station. So that's why I kind of just switched careers entirely. We sold the company, the healthcare company, and just leaned all in with what if we could take that ethical basis, that interest in human quality of life, embedded into software that shows up in people's phones. And now with AR and augmented reality, virtual reality, audible augmentation, it's how do we end up in people's ears, eyes, and ultimately directly in their mind.
Tyson, ever since I've known you, you've always been working on something that is super creative and impactful to society. So I want to thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for spending time on Day in a Canoe, and wish you all the best in the days ahead.
Well, thanks a lot, Nathan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening and tuning in to Day in a Canoe. We're thrilled to have you as part of our community. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share it with your friends and loved ones. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on social media platforms by searching Day in a Canoe. We'll see you next time.